Okay, we're going to pick up here in the next video. We've just finished provisioning the new AI Studio configuration into the Azure Sandbox, and now we're going to do some smoke testing. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go up to the Azure portal here and have a look at um, what's been provisioned on the back end. So if we go in first and we look at AI Studio, you can see we have two new resources here. We have an AI Studio Hub and an AI Studio Services resource, right? Um, we also, if we go look at our private endpoints, we're going to see a bunch of new private endpoints in the sandbox. So we expect ones to be in there for blob and file, but you can see we've got four new ones here. One for the container registry, one for the AI Studio Hub, one for the AI Studio Services, and one for the AI Search or Cognitive Search. And those are all approved and connected, and they're all sitting in that 10.2 private link subnet that we have in the application virtual network, right alongside the other private endpoints that were already in there with the sandbox. To be network isolated. So I should not be able to connect to this outside of the VNet from my client environment here, which is running on my home network. So let's test that out. I'm going to go to the hub here, and I'm going to say Launch AI Studio. And that does take me into AI Studio, but I get an error when I try to connect to the hub. And that's what I expect because I've got that hub locked down using a private endpoint. So that kind of validates one aspect of our network isolation. So let's go ahead and connect up to that virtual machine, jump box, and see if we can connect from inside the virtual network. A lot of AI projects are working with sensitive data, and keeping the network isolation in there is a top goal for many deployments. So we'll sign in using our Bootstrap admin account as usual. And we'll pull the admin password out of the key vault. And here we are connected up to our Windows jump box. So one thing that you'll have to, or at least it says it's a requirement, to set in advance before you can work with AI Studio from your browser, if you're using Edge in particular, there's a security setting that you have to tweak because we're not using like encrypted DNS inside the sandbox, or so-called secure DNS. So that's something that it's recommended that you disable if you're using your own DNS, as we are here in the sandbox. So if I go into privacy and search, and we go look at these security settings, you can see that I've disabled this use secure DNS to specify how to look up network addresses for websites. And the only reason for that is that, we have a very simple implementation of DNS in the sandbox. We're using our own homegrown DNS, if you will. So we don't need that enabled. Okay. So now that we've validated that that is the case, next thing I can do is go up and launch AI Studio. So you go up to ai.azure.com. I'm already signed in. That's from a previous session that I had. But if you're not signed in, you would need to sign in first and, authenticate and do MFA or whatever is required from an Entra ID perspective. So I am signed in here, so I'm kind of good to go. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll go to all resources and projects, and we'll see we have a hub here and an AI services resource. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the hub. And this time, because I'm inside the private network, I have no problem getting access to the hub. So far, so good. We can see the region that I'm provisioned into. We're using the Sandbox resource group and the Sandbox subscription. And basically here we have an empty hub. So first thing I'm going to do is connect up those optional resources that I described. So there's two things we need to connect up to. The first thing is the Azure AI services, and it goes ahead and looks for them on the subscription and it finds one. So I already have an AI services resource here provisioned as part of my Terraform configuration. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect that up to our hub. Okay, so that's connected. And if we refresh the browser, we should see two things come back as a result of that. So basically, one set of endpoints for all the Microsoft AI services and another endpoint specific to Azure OpenAI come back from that connection. And then we also have Azure AI Search, formerly known as Cognitive Search, provisioned as part of this configuration, which we might want to use for, testing some of our AI use cases. So I choose that, and I'm going to connect that one up as well. Great. So I've got those resources all connected up to our hub, and now we can, start using them in projects. So I'm just going to steal this unique name that we use to name our hub, and I'm going to use that to go out here and create a new project. And we'll call this AIP, and we'll paste in that name. And we'll go ahead and say create. And then inside the project is where we can, start testing our various AI use cases. All right. So our project's been created and it gets opened up, and you can see, it's basically an empty project. You can see all the different properties associated with it over here. And probably the first thing that we want to do is deploy an AI model for us to work with. So I'm going to go down here to deployments, and I'm going to deploy an AI model. So we're going to go ahead and deploy a base model. And the model we'll try out here is GPT-4o. There it is. Little description of GPT-4o. And I'm going to say confirm. And this is, something you kind of want to pay attention to make sure, you're in the right place, you've got the right region, and that you're using the right deployment type, and that you're not going to accidentally use a deployment type that's going to try to pre-provision PTUs. So global standard will not do that. It will just charge you based upon your usage. And that's probably the best model for just playing around or testing the way we are here. So let's go ahead and deploy that model and make that available inside our hub. So that's almost instantaneous. You can see that the provisioning state is succeeded. And we have all the different keys and URIs that the AI Studio Hub will use and the project will use to communicate with OpenAI and that GPT-4o model that we just provisioned. So what can we do to just kind of like test this model out and see if it's working? So one of the easiest ways to do that is inside the chat playground. So if I go into chat here, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a system message here that kind of directs OpenAI to tell us what kind of context we want it to operate in. So I have some sample text right here in the smoke testing that we can use. So here's the text we're going to use for that system prompt. So we're going to tell the model that it's an AI assistant that's going to help analyze call center transcripts. So if I click on save here and click on continue, that will be the context in which that model will interpret the prompts that we send it. So now we can start sending it some actually prompts. So let's send it a call center transcript and see if it can do a good job of summarizing that. So I have a whole call center transcript here in the smoke testing. So we'll just copy that out. And we'll come back here and we'll paste that transcript in. And we'll send it off to the model and see how it does. And it almost comes back instantaneously. It does a really good job of summarizing the call center transcript, and basically provides a good summary of the interactions between the call center agent and the customer, and basically what happened. Now, the quality of this is pretty good. So, as an initial test of our call center scenario, we've been able to take an actual call center transcript, send it off to GPT-4o, and get a decent summary back from the AI model for use in our call center application. So this is one of the interactions with various AI services that we can prototype and test out within the AI Studio Hub. So that wraps up the smoke testing. And in the next video, we'll do a little code walkthrough of the various components in this configuration. Thanks.